Hi, TaKenya. So, for those out there who don't already know about you and Studio 117 Creative, please tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do.
Sure. So, first, thanks for having me. Studio 117 Creative is a WordPress website agency. We do design work for small businesses, nonprofits, bloggers, but also one of the biggest services that we offer is our maintenance, where we help with running and keeping up the back end of your website. I know a lot of people find that the tech part of their business ends up being the challenging part. And so our whole goal is just like to take that off of the table for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and let them shine doing what it is that they do. And we just make them look good doing it online. So that's the gist of what we primarily do. But then also we have a couple clients that just use us for tech support, like when they need help, when something's not working, things like that. And so that's how Atarim kind of plays into our workflows.
Awesome. And for these clients, are you mostly also hosting and handling the hosting entirely for them as well?
I have some clients that I host their sites. Others, I have a partner host that I work with. And so, like, I'll get their hosting and everything set up for them. They have full access to their hosting, but they keep me on it as well so that if they have issues, in addition to the host being someone they can reach out to, they also can reach out to me and I can dive in and help as well.
Amazing. All right. So, what first led you to Atarim? Were there specific pain points that you were facing at the time in terms of things that you were looking to solve in the agency, you as a bottleneck with collecting feedback from clients, or anything that you can point to?
So, I think I've been using Atarim for it's been at least 2 years. And I want to say that I started using it right as I really set up the business. So the work that I do, I've always done on the side and not in an official capacity. And then I set the business up formally in at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. And it was almost, I don't remember exactly how I found out about Atarim. It might have been a Facebook ad or something like that. But it was like right on time because, first of all, I'm a systems junkie. Like, I like to have my things in order and I'm always thinking about client experience. And when I came across Atarim, it just made sense because that was one of my concerns is like being able to communicate with the customer when I need feedback on their website and doing it in an organized manner without having to take a whole bunch of screenshots and all of that. And so I ended up getting on a call, and I think the company was still fairly newer at that time because I spoke with one of the founders that walked me through like how it worked and what it was. And I was pretty much sold on it. I started using it just for client feedback, like in the design process. And then I dove into using it like with my hosting clients for them to be able to put in like trouble tickets and let me know things that they need help with. And here recently, we just revamped our maintenance plan so that they get, if they want, there are tiers where they can have support hours. And so the Atarim plugin actually is great for that as well because they don't have to try and figure out how to screenshot the stuff for me. They don't have to figure out how to explain where it's at or drop links. Like, it just gives me everything that I need. So it just made sense for our business.
Awesome. I love to hear that. So, it sounds from what you're saying, the primary system you're trying to set up was to make it as easy as possible for your customers to leave feedback because otherwise they would have to go through the process of taking screenshots and emailing you, oh, this page, this like specific picture on this page, I would like to get it replaced, and so on. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being able to do stuff in an organized manner and have it like all be in one place. So even sometimes I may have a client who'll be like, hey, I'll record you a quick Loom, or hey, I sent you this screenshot. And I'm like, hey, can you go in your website and completely show me where
Yes.
it's at? And they forget sometimes that they have that ability because it keeps it orderly for me on my end and also for them. They're not having to go search their inbox and find where the feedback was at or what I said and whatever else. So it streamlines things. And like I said, I'm really big on systems and automation and just having systems in place for the client experience.
Amazing. I also think, yeah, from their point of view as well, it's once they've left a piece of feedback, if they sent it as a Loom or as an email, it's also harder for them to keep track of the status, whether or not you marked it as complete when everything is done. So just to that effect, to give a little bit more context, the customers that you work with, the clients you work with, are they mostly of a specific type of client? Just to get an idea. Are they mostly older, like in their 50s, or are they mostly younger, new entrepreneurs, small business owners?
I can't say like age wise that there is a specific range, but I think the commonality among our clients is they're either scared of tech and breaking things, or they just are overwhelmed by all that WordPress can have. And Atarim just makes that easier. It's not another system that they have to learn because it's already built in. And I typically, if needed, I record videos and show them like, hey, this is exactly how you use it. But one of the things that I love too is that Atarim has the ability to white label. So being able to apply my branding to it. So it just feels more cohesive to them. They're not like, oh crap, what is this? Because they see the Studio 117 logo right there when they get logged in and stuff like that. So it's typically just people who are either overwhelmed by tech or a little intimidated by tech. And so this, I feel like, helps make them a little bit more comfortable too when you have good systems in place. Okay.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, it's amazing to hear the use cases of white labeling. It's more, especially for the non-technical clients, just seeing that logo and being cohesive with the agency. They know, oh, if I'm dropping something here, it's going to Studio 117 Creative, as opposed to seeing the Atarim logo and thinking, oh, what is this extra system? Just
What is
yeah,
this? Yeah.
which is
And then you got to go to Google and see what this is about. Hey, is this you? Yeah. So the white labeling feature was one of the things that I really loved. And that's what made me do the subscription tier for being able to white label it.
okay, amazing. And so 2 years ago when you started using it, you mainly focused on the client communication aspect, so the gathering feedback aspect. Now 2 years on, have you expanded the use to more of the project management stuff? Are you using another tool for project management that you integrate with Atarim at the moment?
So I've tested out using Atarim in a couple different ways, and I'm still always tweaking how I work and what I'm working with, trying to do less with more or do more with less if possible. I do use another tool for the project management aspect of things, and the way that it integrates versus how it integrates with some of the other tools has not really worked for how we work over on our side. But the overall like inbox of it and being able to organize things by the projects and things like that is the best thing for me because I can go directly to, oh, okay, that's this project. Let me see where I'm at with that. And I love being able to differentiate like the things that still need work versus what's been complete or what still needs my attention. And I will say that over the time that I've been using it, there have been so many updates and feature improvements that I have to stop and take time to learn the new things and the new ways that it works. So sometimes me not using it to its full potential is totally a
Yeah.
possibility because I even with the most recent update where workspaces were added, I still haven't had the opportunity to play with that, but I have an idea of how I want to use that. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because the platform has grown, especially in the last year, relatively quickly. But the core visual collaboration aspect still remains foundational to everything. So people can still come in and like it seems you is primarily use that, and they don't necessarily need to. I mean, we have a lot of agencies and we see them handle it in different ways. Some of them they want to just collect the feedback in using Atarim on the front end, but then immediately send that to Jira or to ClickUp, and then not actually mark the task as complete and handle that in Atarim directly. Whereas for others, and like
Mm.
for your case, it sounds like it actually makes more sense to use the inboxes directly in Atarim as your sort of like triage place where all the feedback comes in. And of course, I imagine for every client, you will have then a project in Teamwork or Asana, whichever system you use, which is specifically for that website, or maybe even multiple, if you're also doing other services for a specific client, other ongoing projects and work that you have.
That's exactly how it works for me. Like being able to, what I typically use it for is the 2 rounds of revisions at the end of the design process. And so I use ClickUp personally for managing the project, keeping me and my team on task. And then also I have a task list for the clients for the things that I need from them or what I need them to be focusing on. And the feedback, while you can sync it up with ClickUp, I found it better to just keep it living in Atarim and like handling it in Atarim.
Amazing. So you mentioned your team. I'm curious if you're willing to share a little bit more about what your team structure looks like at the moment, and also how they're using Atarim, everybody, or is it mainly you?
So right now, it's mostly just me using Atarim. It is myself, and it has primarily been just me. Couple months ago, I brought on an intern who has just been learning and working hands-on. And so Atarim has also been like great for that because as I have her working on projects, when she's ready for me to give her feedback about the work that she's done, we pull it up in Atarim and I can mark it up in Atarim and give her feedback so she knows what she needs to like fix or review, update, whatever. And so it's also been from us specifically instrumental in like her training process, which has been really cool. And even one of the other features that I love in the design process is sometimes, and this is just jumping back to like when I'm working with a design client, sometimes I'm not ready for them to see the full site and be able to click around in the site. So having the ability to just capture one page, for instance, and get feedback on just that page before I move on, or to see how they feel about how things are flowing from just a homepage perspective or something like that. That's one of the things that I love about it as well, because it gives me full control over how much access I want to give the client to the site at the time.
Nice. And are you using you're using the creative image uploads tool for that? Or are you just using essentially creating a collab link, but then not letting them browse to the different areas by not having the areas linked?
No, where you can actually capture the screen capture of just a page. So like you can either take your own screen capture and upload it, or it gives you the option to put the URL of the page that you want and it grabs the screen capture for you. So I'll use
To
that
create a more static version.
sometimes
Yeah.
before I actually give them the full interactive version of the website.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And if we go to more of the impact overall in terms of, I don't know how exactly specific you are about measuring. Some are a little bit more specific about measuring like average task completion time and things like this. And I know you said you were using Atarim quite early on already, so it might be a bit more difficult to compare before and after. But if you were to try to compare the impact that using Atarim has had and what it's enabled you to achieve time-wise, productivity-wise, how would you describe it?
I feel like for that piece, because I did start using it so early on, I don't really have a before and after measurement, like you said, but I can totally see the impact that it has on my workflow, because I know I can easily track what stage I'm in with a client, because I know once I've given them access to Atarim, I give them a certain amount of time for them to go in and do their revisions. And I just wait until they're complete so I can move on to another project or working on or focusing on something else, knowing that they are there, they have what they need, and they can get it done, versus having to go back and check a folder to see if they've uploaded something, or check my inbox and search to see if they've responded to messages. And so in that vein, it keeps everything organized and it increases my productivity, because I'm not like doing the
Chasing up.
whack-a-mole,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
trying to wrangle everything, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Awesome.
And then I will say, just going back to being an early adopter of using it, one thing that I will say has been beneficial is how supportive like the Atarim team is. They send out emails occasionally saying, hey, if you want to jump on a call and talk about how you're using it or you have specific questions. And I'm a feedback person. If I see a way to improve something, I'll share it. They've always been very receptive to that. I have also utilized getting on those calls that they have weekly with the team to say, hey, this is how I'm using it now, or I just started doing this and I noticed that this happened. And they're able to troubleshoot it with me right then and there. So that has actually been one of the main things that makes me consistently use it, because I feel supported in using it too. Like I don't have to spend a whole lot of time figuring it out on my own. So I'll troubleshoot something. If I get to the point that I'm like, I don't have time for this, I can book a call and I know that, they'll help me resolve my issue.
Yeah, I love to hear that. A big part of now, especially in I would say the last year and a half or so, is that we're very much want to build the product alongside users. So those conversations, although to you they're like maybe sometimes more so debugging an issue, it's us seeing firsthand, oh, this is how a specific user is using this feature, and they're struggling to do something which we thought was maybe made sense to us, but then to somebody experiencing it for the first time, it just wasn't logical at all. So then we can improve the product. I love that. When you introduced Atarim to any of your clients, did you at any point have a little bit of a hurdle at the beginning of getting them to use it as opposed to just sending stuff in? Or was it very much intuitive for them because it was really just pointing and clicking as opposed to emailing in us or WhatsApping you? Or we have some agencies which still have so many forms of different communication, like you say, and they are playing essentially like the telephone operator of connecting the dots from where they get the different requests.
Yeah. I don't feel like I've had a whole lot of trouble, because when I first started using it, what I would do is once I uploaded the site into Atarim and I was ready for them to make revisions, I would record a video of a walkthrough. This is exactly how you use it. This is what I need you to do. Whatever else, like specifically for their site. Now that I am much more comfortable using Atarim, I have just a standard video that I have recorded on my demo site that I send them as to like how they need to use it and how it works. At one point, I did have an issue where if they created it, Atarim was like prompting them to create an account. And then if they created an account, when I wanted them to go in and approve pages, it would tell them that they didn't have the proper access because it was looking at them as a user. So that was confusing, where they were like, can I just email you this? But I was able to talk to the team at Atarim and find out like why that was happening and how to avoid that. So I would just say for my clients specifically, because I'm a communicator, probably an over communicator, I give you way more information so that you don't have to a whole lot of questions. I think that the process of using Atarim is pretty seamless for them because they feel equipped when I hand it to them, like they don't have to figure it out or think about it. And so that makes it that much easier for them, I think.
Nice. That's brilliant. Yeah, I love to hear that. That's always better to hear than, oh, yes, we have a couple of users, a couple of our clients that were struggling to adopt it. Yeah, you're very much invested into building your processes around using Atarim and introducing your clients to it. Going back a little bit more so to when you use Atarim in the process, it sounds like you have a very structured approach. So I'm always hesitant to ask this because sometimes people say, oh, it very much varies project to project. But would you be willing to talk a little bit in more detail through when, because you say you have a feedback window of, I'm just hypothesizing here, maybe 10 days where they can leave feedback, and then you dive back in and start working through the feedback, as opposed to just this constant stream of feedback and you don't really know when it's ready for you to dive back into? Or is it very much that it varies project by project?
No, I'm a creature of habit, so I need to know how things are going to happen. The way that I have things set up is that once I give them access, I ask them typically to get back to me like within a week because I don't let them in while I'm working too much. By the time I give them access, like they're super excited to see and get in and click around and whatever. A lot of times they get the feedback to me quicker than a week because they're like, let's go. And I give 2 rounds of feedback. So the way that I have them do that is I give them the access. I tell them, go in, mark it up as much as you want, ask all the questions you want, request the changes. And then once you're done, I have them also send me an email. Like Atarim will send a message after a certain amount of time of inactivity to let me know that there's been feedback added. I typically just disregard those messages because the client may go in and give feedback and then, oh, I need to sit with this for a minute and think about it. And so Atarim has told me that they're done, but they're not really done yet because they're coming back. So I have them reach out to me when they are like done with their first round. And I actually take away their access. So I take away the collaboration mode while I'm updating the feedback. So I'll go in, I'll address everything. Most things I can typically complete, but if it's unclear what they're asking for, or I have a suggestion that is maybe a little bit different from what they asked me to do, then I go in and add my notes and I put that in a needs review status. So then when I take it back to them and give them their access back, I'm like, hey, everything that you requested is done and marked as complete except for the yellow items, and those still need your attention. So it's a very structured approach to how I do it because I find if you make it too loose, then it ends up being frustrating on both sides because now we're not effectively
Mhm.
communicating. It's just really willy nilly how things are happening. By doing it that way and making it a little more structured, it's oh, okay. Yes, I know I have to get this back to TaKenya by this time. And so they dedicate that time to getting it completed for me.
Yeah, I love that approach of having them separately email because, yeah, those automated notifications are, I think, generally suitable, but especially with clients, it makes more sense to let them hand over or put the ball back in your court, if you want to say it that way, when something is really ready for you again, as opposed to they might take 3, 4 days. So the notifications you would get of bundled new tasks coming in would come 3, 4 days in a row, but then on the fifth day, they're done leaving all of their feedback and it's like, now really this is ready for you and I'm done. And I think it's also subconsciously an extra confirmation step on their end where they go through and look at all the feedback they've left for you and decide, okay, now I actually think I've said everything there is to say and it's ready to go over. Whereas if you leave it open-ended, like you said, it leaves it more, they might think of something and then not mention it immediately, but then decide, no, I changed my mind. I want to mention that. And then it continues dragging on the project.
And it gets muddy that
Mm,
way because then we're working on top of each other. You said, hey, feedback, I want you to change this to this size or whatever. And then I'm in there working to try and change it to that size. And then the process, you might have changed your mind and decided, oh, I see why this is that size. It makes sense. Leave it alone. And so now I've changed it and now I have to change it back. So if I just let you get done with it and sit with it, and then you tell me when you're done, then we're not like on top of each other going back and forth.
yeah, 100%. I think there's also more accountability on the client's part, which is important from a service provider point of view, I think. A lot of agencies are hesitant to impose systems on clients because they think that they're just creating constraints and clients aren't going to like it. But I think you're a prime example of why systems work and why they're necessary because it ultimately makes it more transparent and easier for everybody involved.
Yeah. Like when I created this business, one of the things that I promised myself is like I wasn't going to create another job that I hate. And systems help that be the case for me. I think that, you know, how people, when they talk about parent child relationships, they'll be like, kids thrive with structure and discipline. But we're like, no, we want to let them be free spirits and whatever else. There's a nice mix of that has to happen. And in the client service provider relationship, it's the same thing. We all can thrive when there's a little bit more structure as opposed to like creating unnecessary upset because there was miscommunication or not a streamlined way or expectation set of what needed to happen.
Absolutely. So, first of all, I really appreciate you taking the time. To wrap things up, I imagine and would hope that Go For It is the first piece of advice you'd have for people thinking to get started with Atarim. But is there anything else you would add to that? If someone is exploring Atarim,
Yeah, for me, like I always just try stuff out. My friends always laugh at me because like I'll subscribe to stuff hoping for the best. If it doesn't work, then I'm like, okay, this didn't work. Luckily, Atarim was one of those tools that like I subscribed, I played around with it. And even in the beginning, there was some growing pains and there was some frustrations. Like I could see the potential in it. And so it was worth it to stay on board and just figure out how to continually tweak it until it worked exactly the way I needed it. And now at this point, I think that it's so much better than it was then that it's no reason not to use it. Like when I see people throwing questions out on social media, hey, how are you managing client feedback? I always drop the link to Atarim. I just think it's a no-brainer. I don't know, for a person who doesn't like chaos,
yeah,
it's a no-brainer because any other way of doing this to me just feels chaotic.
awesome. That sounds like absolutely music to my ears. I couldn't have asked for you to put it any better. And I would agree. I'd say one of the other things that you get when you choose Atarim is very much that the team is here to help you succeed beyond just fixing issues. But of course, that is a big part of it. If you do run into technical issues, is we're here and ready for your feedback. And there are lots of people that use Atarim many different ways. Some use integrations, some couldn't care less about integrations. And we're here for everybody that is looking to use visual feedback as a part of their process. And like you said, everybody that's working in a creative job that doesn't want to deal with feedback and unclear processes throughout the entire project delivery process, this is exactly where Atarim comes in. So once again, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to share a little bit more about how Studio 117 uses Atarim. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I just want to hit one more point. You mentioned integrations. That has been huge, probably in the last year, where it started to integrate with more and more tools. And typically, when the team launches a new integration, they send out an email to users. So that has also helped me find other tools that work in my business because they integrate with Atarim. So sometimes it's, oh, I already use that. This is exciting. This is great. But then sometimes it's, what does this do? And how could I potentially use it or maybe streamline in some other ways?
Is there a specific one that you discovered through Atarim? So a tool you hadn't heard of before, but discovered through us?
So I use for client management, I use main WP. So Atarim had already had a main WP integration, and I was really excited when I started using main WP that they had that integration. But then here recently, they had shared that they were now integrated with Dolly. And so that led me to have a conversation with the people over at Dolly and learn a little bit more about the platform. I did try it out. It doesn't fully suit my needs right now, but I can definitely see the potential in it. So it's on my radar, which it never would have been before, I don't think. So now I just have it on my mind to go back and check and see as they are growing, if it does in fact fit, for my business. So just having that extra just resource really, because like I said, I probably would have never found out about Dolly or it would have been down the line. And being able to talk to the people over there and give feedback, even though it didn't work for me, like I was able to give feedback and show them like how I would like to use it. So hopefully down the line I could.
That would be amazing. Yeah, we'd love to hear that. If we introduce you to the Dolly team, which we also really love, they're all great people. I met them at WordCamp Europe this year. And it eventually leads to being a platform that you can also adopt. That's essentially what we want to do in the ecosystem and that's what the partnerships are for. So I'm really excited to hear that.
Yep, makes perfect sense. I love a tool that is thinking about its users and not only how like you can service me as a user, but what kind of things you can partner with that also makes it better and easy for me because that keeps me with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And essentially the goal is to help you succeed. And if there's other tools that help you be more productive, sometimes it's save more money as opposed to using some more expensive tool, whatever it may be, that is ultimately a win for us. I think that's how we see ourselves. For the designer, for the WordPress business owner, that's how Atarim ultimately wants to help people, is like through our platform, but then also through helping them adopt the ecosystem of tools that is the perfect fit for their business.
That just makes sense. Yeah, it just makes sense. So, like I said, I love having been exposed to the tool and it's been really cool just watching it grow. As a person who like loves systems and tech and stuff like that, it's just exciting to see the growth, but it's also inspiring too as a business owner.
We'd love to have you on board as well. Thank you again. And I hope that we get
Yes,
to catch up again soon and I'll see you around in the community and elsewhere.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Have a good rest of your
You too.
day.